Good afternoon. Welcome to the June 23rd meeting of Hardin County Fiscal Court. I'd remind you, if you have cell phones, to please turn them off or put them in vibrate mode. We'll begin with a roll call, if you would, Ms. Donnelly.
Clam, Wiseman,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Ronnie Goodman,
Here.
King,
Here.
Judge Barry,
Here.
Easter, Boone,
Here.
Doug Goodman.
Here.
Mr. Doug Goodman will lead us in the invocation, and Mr. Ronnie Goodman in the pledge, if you'll please stand.
Would you join me in prayer? Dear God, our Heavenly Fathers, we're gathered here today. We're most thankful for this beautiful day you bestowed upon us. Yes, you guide us in our decisions. May our decisions be always in the best interest of Hardin County. For this we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item we have up today is under informational items, and it's the budget for 2021 for the Hardin County Cooperative Extension Service. That was included in your packet. It was submitted by Mr. Doug Shepard and Mr. Nathan Highball, who's here in the audience with us today on behalf of the Extension Service, and they're here to answer any questions if you have any. If not, we just need to note in the minutes that we received it. All right. Thanks for being here today, and thanks for the great job you do not only with the budget, but everything you do at the Extension Service. Public certainly appreciates it as well. Thank you. We'll move on to elected office reports, and today we have with us the Coroner, Dr. William Lee.
Good afternoon, Judge and members of the court.
Afternoon.
I probably might move this mask down so I won't be muffled. Got the April and May report. As you know, we work on the calendar year for our reports. And see, Robert, you take care of the slides for us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. April report shows 81 cases that the coroner's office was called upon. The non-natural deaths, well, you see natural there, 75 cases we had out of those 81. Had 2 accidental deaths, both were overdoses. And we had 3 suicides. A couple of them were gunshots and 1 hanging. And then they had the 1 gunshot homicide. So in the next slide, for those again that like pictures, it shows the pie chart with showing the 93% is the number, the percentage of the natural deaths, and then the breakdown of the others: suicide, homicide, and accidental. We'll move on to the next slide. May, we were up a little bit more, 85 cases, and quite a few non-natural deaths. We had 71 natural deaths as opposed to, what was it, April was 75, not a whole lot difference. But the non-natural deaths, you see quite varied, 6 accidental deaths, and look at those fentanyls, and that's still is our #1 medicine killer, fentanyl. Or fentanyl, some people pronounce it. But and then there was 1 car wreck, so that was a 6 accidental deaths in May. The 3 homicides, and they were all gunshots. And we had 2 suicides, and those were both gunshot wounds. And we got 3 pending toxicology, so that'll either put us in the accidental category or the suicide category, depending on the further studies on those 3 cases. And then the pie chart showing there, and you see the yellow showing 90%. I think that's about as low as we've had in a long time. I'd have to go back and research the last 30 years, but very seldom we're down that low on the natural deaths. It's usually up 93 to 96% natural deaths. The non-natural, that's a little less, obviously. Next slide shows the total cases year to date, so that means through May the 31st. Going back to 2015, that time we had 280, as you see this year, present year, 395, so we continue to climb in our total cases. Next Picture shows the three categories of non-natural deaths, the accidental, the suicide, and homicide. So you can see that each of those three categories, that accident being the first category, and these go back through 2017, were higher in each of those three categories, accidents and homicides and suicides, from the previous year. I don't know what happened back in 2018. The yellow there in the accidental column was up pretty high. I don't recall what happened that year, but it was pretty high. But compared to last year, we're up in all three of those categories. And the next slide, as I've always said, is kind of a busy slide. A lot of different things to point out. And the first column of numbers there to the far left is the number of autopsies. You see they're a little higher than the last couple of years, 15, and that's probably because of the homicides. You want to have documentation on those homicides because you know you're going to be going to court. And these guys, attorneys, like to have all the facts the best we can. So the forensic pathologists, when they get in to testify, it's more meaningful than me as a lay person. So autopsies up a little bit, but bequeathals is down. You see, last year we had 4 bodies were donated to research with the universities, and only 1 thus far this year. The middle column is the cremations, and that continues to gradually climb. More people are opting for cremation as opposed to traditional burials. Next category, the county cremations, we've been fortunate to keep those low the last few years, and we've only had 1 thus far this year. That we might have a couple pending right now, possible indigent situations. But in the next 2 categories, the transport, the EMS and the coroner transport, and you see comparing the last few years, the EMS was transporting, well, they're all low, but prior to those years, they were doing the majority of the transporting from the scene back to the coroner's office and so forth. And we continue to want to do more transporting. We get a nice vehicle now, and we'll feel a little easier driving up to Louisville for autopsy in that vehicle too, a little safer. But just picking up from the scene, EMS will still do some of those. They're there. They're always there to help us. Mark, I've been here too. But appreciate their help. But they probably have to still do some scenes, like if we're on the highway and we need to clear the roadway quickly, get traffic flowing on the interstate or whatever. There may be occasions where they may have to transport back to the coroner office as opposed to us doing that. So, but continue to be a big help to us. And I think the last slide is residency of the decedents in Hardin County, the incorporated areas. Of course, E-Town being the major numbers, 39 deaths out of the 395 that we had, 46%. So we're usually around 50% because of the size of E-Town and so forth. And out of state, and they're usually out on the interstate where the people are brought in, not Hardin County residents. With the makeup of those. I think that's it, Judge. Any questions?
Comments or questions for Dr. Lee? All right, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate the great job you did.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the Hardin County Sheriff, Sheriff John Ward.
Good afternoon, Judge Berry,
Good afternoon.
magistrates, clerk, county attorney, and other guests. Sheriff's report for April and May is as follows. On law enforcement, 127 arrests, 114 citations, 32 warrants served, 381 civil process, 904 complaint calls, 56 accidents investigated, 54 criminal cases, 1,310 other activities, 246 school safety checks, 93 violation warnings, 971 attempts to serve. If you'll notice, the numbers are a little lower on some of the activities for that time period, I think due to the COVID-19, except complaint. Domestic calls have really been increased during the pandemic, it seems like. Next slide on office operations. They're down due to closures. Records check 79, 157 carrying concealed deadly weapon, 468 vehicle inspections. Our transports, adults 25, juveniles 2, and in-state 32. Also, the end of end of May, Deputy Chuck Warren retired from the Sheriff's Office, and the end of June, Sergeant Tim Story will be retiring. We congratulate them on their careers and wish them the best. That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
It's hard to believe either one of them's ready for retirement.
I agree.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you, sir. Next, we'll hear from Ms. Teri Bennett, Chief Financial Officer for the Sheriff's Office.
Good afternoon, Judge and members of Fiscal Court. I think you have received in your packet our budget information. In April, we spent about 7.9% of our budget, which amounts to about $365,700 of our budget. I hate to get up here and repeat myself each month, but of course, you know, most of that goes to our manpower, which was about $310,000, and the rest was for general office expense. We did have a vehicle in the month of April for one of our canine officers. And in May, we spent about 7.72% of our budget, which was about $357,300, and again, manpower $324,000. And if you will look at our balance sheet, you will see that in the month of April, we sent up $341,775 in fees. And in the month of May, we sent up $427,000 in fees, which puts us only in the hole about $372,000 for the year. So, but pretty much puts us on target. So hopefully, that's pretty much where we stand for the year. We run in the red pretty much up until the month of November or December when our tax money comes in. So, anyone have any questions for me?
Anyone have any comments? All right. Well, thanks. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir.
Well, with the day being election day, we made sure we had a fairly quick or light agenda, so that brings us to the consent agenda. Those things were included in your electronic packet that was distributed earlier. Are there any corrections that need to be made?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Doug Goodman, second by Mr. Wiseman. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Donnelly.
Wiseman,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Ronnie Goodman,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Judge Barry,
Yes.
Doug Goodman,
Yes.
Boone.
Yes.
That's it.
All right, and we'll start around the table with comments today with Mr. Doug Goodman.
Judge, I have no comments. I'll yield my time to Squire Boone. I'm sure she'll enlighten us with something.
I don't have a thing. Nope.
Nothing?
No.
All right. We'll go to Mr. Wiseman.
I have nothing, Judge.
And Mr. Thompson.
Be safe.
And Mr. Ronnie Goodman.
No, I have nothing, Judge.
All right, Mr. King, it's all up to you.
I'm going to do it, Judge. In the spirit of Fred Clem, who had to be out of town today, I would encourage everyone to avoid drinking and driving and texting and driving. As Mr. Thompson said, be safe out there.
All right. Mr. Jones, anything from the county attorney's office?
I have nothing, Judge.
Ms. Donnelly, anything you'd like to tell us today?
If you have not voted, the polls are open here at the Hardin County Government Building. We're open till 6 p.m. If you're in line at 6 p.m., you'll get to vote. So come on down if you have not voted. And I just want to say a big thank you to Judge Barry and Daniel and Bryce for what all you all stepped up to do for us. John Ward and his deputies, outstanding. I just can't say enough for what all you all have done. So you all made this election run so smooth, and I really appreciate it, so thank you so much.
I appreciate the great work you're doing.
Thank
It's turned out great.
Thank you.
All right. Remind everybody that the next meeting of Hardin County Fiscal Court is on July 14th here in the Clerk courtroom at 3:30 in the afternoon. And if there's nothing else to come before us, a motion would be in order for us to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Doug Goodman. Any discussion? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we stand adjourned.